I think perhaps we should pause for a moment with a sigh of relief at the removal of Trump as US President. It's now pretty certain. But I think our relief should only last a moment. Trump and his movement still wait in the wings, and the United States under Biden remains very much part of the global axis of evil. It remains intact, endangering, I think, the very existence of our planet. The global pandemic is on the rise, the climate crisis reaching tipping point, and in this country we face a deep economic crisis. And now, just as we need a movement for fundamental transformation, the Labour Party, which should be leading that movement, is fast becoming unfit for purpose. The suspension of Jeremy Corbyn is only the latest outrage. It is quite unprecedented for a Labour leader to have his predecessor removed, and have no doubt Starmer's fingerprints are all over this decision. But this is much more than about Jeremy Corbyn. Behind him and before him, we've seen a growing wave of suspensions and expulsions from the party. And what was the crime of Jeremy and so many of the others? They dared to speak the truth. When Jeremy, referring to the issue of anti-Semitism in the party, said that the scale of the problem was dramatically overstated for political reasons, he was telling an obvious truth, the truth beyond any serious challenge. There was nothing in the EHRC report that contradicted that. And then Deputy Leader Angela Rayner gave the game away. What Jeremy said, she admitted, may have been true, but to say it was unacceptable. And then worse, unelected full-timers from London region this week prevented the London Regional Executive Committee, elected by London Conference, from voting on a motion to reverse the decision to suspend Jeremy. Unelected General Secretary David Evans has already issued extraordinary edicts challenging the right of constituency parties to discuss the EHRC report or the settlement to so-called whistleblowers following the Panorama report. Now, this is the shameful level of all those who aspire to lead Labour. It's an old saying that truth is the first casualty of war, and we are engaged in just that, a war by the leadership of the party against the membership. And so many members, previously inspired by Jeremy's leadership, are beginning to leave in despair. So how do we respond? Firstly, act collectively. Do not allow our political opponents to pick us off one by one, to force us into individual, atomised responses. The right want us to leave, don't make their job easier. Stay and fight inside the party, which contains more socialists by far than any other in this country, and which is still organically linked to the trade unions. And please, no empty gestures. Ideas such as a sub-strike, stopping our standing orders, getting trade unions to reduce their affiliation to the party will often be counterproductive. Starmer and his allies, quite prepared to lose a substantial part of Labour's membership and the funds that go with it. They see how the Tories won the last election without any mass membership, and with Labour under new management and rid of the Corbyn leadership, and with the Johnson government exposed in its utter incompetence, Labour suddenly becomes once again a viable option for the establishment. Starmer thinks, with some reason, he doesn't need a mass party. Secondly, do not allow ourselves the luxury of comforting illusions. I hear comrades reminding us that in order to win the leadership, Starmer promised to keep faith with the core pledges of Corbyn's election manifesto. Firstly, already many of those pledges are history, but more important, learn the lessons of history. When Kinnock won the Labour leadership in the 80s, he was determined to move the party to the right, but he didn't start with a frontal attack on the left's policy gains. First was the political attack, isolate and smash the left. Then and only then, once he had achieved that objective, did he embark on his policy review that wiped out all of the policy gains of the previous years. So too with Starmer. That is the purpose of suspending Jeremy. Now, we must, of course, act with self-discipline and refuse to engage in personal attacks on the Labour leadership. but pleas to keep our head down really are something to be avoided. I even heard of a comrade urging us to wait till next year's Labour Party conference. And all the time, members are leaving and will continue to leave unless they see a visible and organised resistance. Now, we enter a long winter. We enter lockdown. And as we do so, we should remember these words, I think, of Dylan Thomas. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Thank you, Father.